Gladys Knight's story is one of triumph, heartbreak, and survival. A life that has played out in the spotlight yet often carried shadows behind the stage lights. She was born on May 28, 1944, in Atlanta, Georgia, at a time when segregation shaped the daily lives of Black families. Her father worked steadily as a postal worker, an esteemed job for a Black man in those days, while her mother supported the family as a nurse's aide. Together they raised 4 children in a household that leaned on faith, music, and resilience. From the start, it was clear their daughter possessed a voice that defied her age. At just 4 years old, she was singing gospel at Mount Moriah Baptist Church, her sound so rich and soulful that churchgoers swore she sang with the weight of a woman far older. By 8, her gift took her to national television. On Ted Mack's original Amateur Hour, she sang Too Young by Nat King Cole, leaving the judges and millions of viewers in awe. She won the grand prize, which included a trophy almost taller than she was and $2,000, money that allowed her family to purchase their first television. That moment marked the beginning of her journey as America's little girl with the grown woman's voice. Later that same year, music began shaping her life in another way. At her brother Bubba's 10th birthday party, the record player broke. Rather than let the silence linger, Gladys began to sing, and soon Bubba, her sister Brenda, and 2 cousins joined in. The performance was unplanned, but it was magic. Their mother insisted they continue together, and from that day the Pips were born, named after their cousin Pip Woods, who also became their first manager. They were children, some barely 8, none older than 12, but they already carried the spark of professionals. Their first paid show came in 1953 at a community center in Atlanta, where they earned $10 for 15 minutes of music. It wasn't much, but it marked their shift from a family pastime to a budding career. By the time Gladys was 11, they were on the Chitlin Circuit, the network of clubs and theaters that gave Black performers a space to shine in a segregated America. The road was brutal. They often slept in cars or buses when hotels turned them away, and they were sometimes paid with food instead of money. Yet those hardships sharpened them, teaching Gladys how to connect with audiences and introducing her to legends like Sam Cooke and Jackie Wilson. By 1957, Brunswick Records signed them and released their first single. It didn't become a hit, but it gave them a taste of the industry. Even when members left in 1959, the group carried on, pulling in new voices and pressing forward. In 1961, their breakthrough arrived. Every Beat of My Heart soared to number 1 on the R&B chart and into the top 10 on pop charts. Legal disputes and shady record deals meant they didn't earn what they deserved, but the world finally knew their name. Through the 1960s, they toured relentlessly, facing segregation and long days of back-to-back performances. Gladys balanced music with motherhood after marrying James Newman and giving birth to her first son. She briefly stepped away but returned, determined to keep the group alive. Their sound matured with songs like Giving Up, which showcased her growing power as a vocalist. In 1966, they signed with Motown, though Gladys initially worried they would be overshadowed by stars like Diana Ross. Her instincts weren't wrong. Motown often gave them second-tier treatment. Still, their version of I Heard It Through the Grapevine in 1967 was a sensation, staying atop the R&B chart for 6 weeks. Marvin Gaye's later recording became even more famous, but Gladys never forgot that her group brought the song to life first. As the decade shifted, so did their music. They delivered socially conscious tracks like Friendship Train and soul-stirring ballads like If I Were Your Woman, proving they could blend politics and passion in one breath. Their 1972 hit Neither One of Us earned them a Grammy, but by then they were tired of being given Motown's leftovers. In 1973, they left for Buddha Records, a label better known for bubblegum pop than soul. It was a gamble, but it changed everything. Their album Imagination went gold, and from it came the song that would define Gladys Knight forever. Midnight Train to Georgia began as Midnight Plane to Houston, but after Knight reshaped it, the track became unstoppable. Released in 1973, it climbed to number 1 on the charts, knocking the Rolling Stones from the top spot. Its call-and-response vocals, rich storytelling, and Knight's commanding performance made it unforgettable. It won a Grammy, sold over 1 million copies, and eventually entered the Grammy Hall of Fame. The group's momentum carried through the 1970s with hits like I've Got to Use My Imagination and Best Thing That Ever Happened to Me, songs that solidified them as global stars. Their tours across Europe and Japan drew massive crowds, and at home, they stood tall as one of the era's greatest acts. But by the late 1970s, disco's rise dimmed their light. Their final albums for Buddha didn't chart well, and Knight quietly tested solo waters with her own record. The Pips regrouped in the 1980s with Columbia Records, scoring hits like Love Overboard, which earned another Grammy. In 1989, after more than 3 decades, they disbanded with a farewell tour. Knight moved further into solo work, even recording License to Kill for the James Bond film, which became a hit in Europe. While her professional life was filled with highs, her personal life often unraveled. She married young at 16 after becoming pregnant, but the baby was lost, and her husband James Newman descended into drug addiction. Though she later called him the love of her life, she was left to raise their 2 children largely alone. After they divorced, she married music producer Barry Hankerson. Their marriage was short and marred by battles, including the terrifying kidnapping of their young son during a custody dispute. The pain of that period nearly broke her. By the late 1980s, she fell into gambling, losing millions in baccarat and blackjack. One night alone, she lost more than $500,000. It was only after calling Gamblers Anonymous from inside a casino that she began her recovery. Her next marriage, to motivational speaker Les Brown, collapsed under financial strain. By 2001, she married William McDowell, decades younger but seemingly steady. Yet in 2025, her son Shauna accused McDowell of abuse and exploitation, claims Knight denied while reaffirming she was healthy and happy. Family strife never left her life. Her son Jimmy died young in 1999, and Shauna later went to prison for tax evasion tied to his restaurant business. Through it all, Knight leaned on faith. She converted to the Mormon Church in 1997, and later formed the Grammy-winning Saints Unified Voices Choir. The losses mounted. Her cousin and Pip member William Guest died in 2015, ending a living link to the group's origins. In 2018, Knight herself was diagnosed with stage 1 breast cancer, which she survived thanks to early detection. Honors continued to affirm her place in history. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the Kennedy Center Honors, and the National Medal of Arts presented by President Biden. Yet even at 80, she was still on the road, still singing, even when illness forced her to cancel shows.